All right, today is July 15, 2021. This is the meeting of the Kubernetes Storage Special Interest Group. As a reminder, this meeting is public, recorded, and posted on YouTube. If you have anything that you'd like to discuss today, feel free to add to the agenda document. It is linked in the calendar invite that I hope you use to find your way to this meeting. So today's agenda, we are going to go over 122 planning. Then we're going to go over a design that is currently in progress, the namespace transfer, and then discuss these miscellaneous issues down here. So for 122, the important milestones, the most recent was the code freeze for 122. That happened last week, July 8th. This deadline means that any features that we were working on for 122 must be completed and merged by this date. And so we'll go and get a status update on what features made it, what features did not. Upcoming deadlines to be aware of: July 15th is test freeze. This means any test related changes for these features or to any tests in general should be completed by July 15th. That is today, in fact. So if you have any pending changes, please make sure they're LGTM'd and approved by end of day today. Upcoming deadlines are docs PR reviews. That's going to be these. If you have any features that are going into 122, the associated docs must be ready by July 20th, which is next week, and should be merged a week later on the 27th. Similarly, the feature blog review needs to be completed by the 27th. The feature blog is for accompanying the 122 release. The Kubernetes team does a set of blogs that go out with the release, highlighting different features in there. If you think that there is a feature that you've been working on that you'd like to also write a blog for, please add yourself to this spreadsheet here. Looks like we've got a couple of proposals from the storage side already, one for Volume Populator and one for Cozy. With that, let's jump into the spreadsheet and start getting some status updates. First up, we have delegate FS group to CSI driver instead of kubelet, and Hemant's working on this. Hemant, you want to give an update here?
So I was actually working on the implementation for this, and this is complete for 1.22.
Okay. Awesome. Is there any leftover docs or anything like that that we need to track?
Yeah, there is a placeholder doc PR open for review, and then or open, and then it will need to be updated before the doc deadline.
Cool. All right, thank you, Chang. Next item is CSI online offline volume resizing, volume expansion. Update cap and fix issues, copy allow volume expansion from storage class to PV. Hemant or anyone else who has a update here? Okay, we'll get an update on that next time.
Is that the recover from failure? Which one is this?
This one is the online offline resize.
I think that one is in 1.23. It's not for.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe that one didn't make the tab merge.
Okay, and it looks like the next one is the same story. We missed 122, moved to 123 and redesign. Recovering.
Yeah, that one actually has implementation, but then there were some comments, some review comments. So actually, I think Command is going through some redesign. That's why going to miss it.
Got it. All right, thank you, Shing. Next up is from Humble. We have CSI entry read-only handling. And
you can hear me, Saad?
yes, I can.
Okay.
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
so I have updated the PR which address all the discussions so far. So waiting for the review at the moment, Saad. So yeah, appreciate a review on that.
Awesome. Are you still hoping to get this in for 122?
It's on the sidecar, so I think yeah, we have some more time left, but I think we'll be able to make it. Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you, Humble. Next up, we have issues related to assuming volumes or mount points. The previous status update here was no update. Any updates since then? Jing, are you on the call? Do you? Doesn't look like she is. Okay, we'll have to follow up with this one offline. Next up is storage capacity tracking for pod scheduling. Patrick is working on this. There were bug fixing as the last couple status updates. Anything new here? Did the bug fixes get merged? I'm gonna mark that as no update, and we can get an update hopefully next time. Also from Patrick, PVC inline ephemeral volumes, working with CSI driver. This was bug fixes being reviewed, volume limits attached to code. Any updates on that since? Okay, we'll keep it moving. Next item is spreading over failure domains. Shing.
Yeah, this one has no update because still depending on the next one.
Okay.
Yeah, and then next one. Okay, the working group. There are some new review comments, so I have not got a chance to address those yet. So I will need to update CAP to address those comments.
Okay, thank you, Shing. Next from Christian, we have CSI out of tree, moving iSCSI driver, fit and finish, image building, testing, CI/CD documentation.
Yeah, so Humble's actually been doing a lot of work in this, and he has an open PR that I think was stalled. I'm waiting to figure some unmount issues. Humble, I didn't know if you'd had any more work on this PR.
Yeah, right, Christian. Yes, so I have been testing this and fixing bugs a bit heavily because that driver is at a very early stage. So some more to figure it out, but I think next week I'll start file PRs on what are the fix I have done. So we can continue on that, but we haven't made any release yet on this driver yet. So we'll continue working on that.
Sounds good. Thank you, Humble. Thank you, Christian. I'm gonna go ahead and swap your names. Okay. Next up, we have moving Samba CIFS CSI driver to GA and help with flex volume deprecation. Assigned currently to Andy and Julie. The Linux part is stable, was the last update. GA was cut. Windows is work in progress. Any updates since?
This is Mauricio. So recently, Andy pinged me about an issue with Windows and CSI Proxy, but I think we were able to solve it. So he's also using CSI Proxy v1.
Got it. Sounds like there's progress being made here. Thank you, Mauricio. Next up is sending out deprecation notices for Flex Volume. Last status here was there was a message that was drafted and shared with Michelle and Matt for review, and that was waiting review. Any updates since then?
I think I'm still waiting for a review. I will ping Michelle again.
Okay, sounds good. Next up is PVC volume snapshot namespace transfer. I saw that there was a design meeting this Monday. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make that one, but it looked like good progress was made. Mustafa, you want to give an update here?
Yeah, so we had the design meeting on Monday. Luckily, the authors of the first two attempts attended and they gave comments, and everyone who was in the call gave comments. We have it in the doc. You'll find the link in the doc of this meeting. I added in the under design meeting the name of the feature and a link for the doc I shared during the meeting. Yeah, and everyone pretty much agreed on the CRD approach. We are not yet, next step that I will be thinking with Michael Erickson. He's from Red Hat. He started also, Christian took it over from him. And yeah, but we are just still not deciding in concrete details, but I believe we can use the CRD approach with external controller. And I don't want to take so long time. We can discuss and after we finish.
Wait, you're talking about the volume namespace transfer feature?
Yeah.
Did you ever find a way to overcome the issue around secrets?
Actually, we did not discuss this yet. We wanted to focus in the beginning on the PVCs and maybe volume snapshots as a first step, and then we can try to figure out how to find the workarounds.
Right, but one of the when we did it earlier, I'm sorry I missed the meeting on Monday, but when we investigated this feature earlier, one of the sticking points was that PVCs inevitably end up with having PVs that point back to secrets that are in the same namespace as the original PV or PVC. And if you just move the PVC to another namespace, all the secrets remain in the original namespace. And we were never able to figure out what to do about that. And it seemed like a pretty big sticking point. You know, totally orthogonal to what should the UI look like for actually doing this. Just the fact that the way that the provisioner sidecar works is that it refers back to secrets in the namespace of the PVC makes it especially difficult to move things across namespaces if they're using secrets.
Yeah, but can you please add your note to the doc that I opened for this feature? Just it's important to you know, to get any input from anyone who had, you know.
Yeah, but where is the link to that?
In the doc of this meeting, yeah, you will find under design.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, the agenda, sorry. Here in, like, you know, design reviews, my name, and the end you'll find the link.
Will do.
Thank you.
All right, thank you both for the update and the comment. And looks like I'm glad we've got traction here. So let's keep that going. Next up is CSI Volume Health. For CSI Volume Health, last status update was working on writing down the details on various requests and use cases. Need to update the doc. Any new updates here?
Yeah, so I need to schedule a meeting to discuss this. So I'll try to find some time next week.
Okay, thank you, Shing. Next up is volume populator data source. Ben.
The code merged before the feature freeze, so we have the code and unit test for this, and I'm working on getting the docs and the blog by those deadlines. As a reminder, this feature remains in alpha. We just sort of changed the design from the original alpha to a new design that we're much more happy with and hopefully can go to beta with. The out of tree work associated with this is still TBD.
Ben, we want to cut the release of those two repos for 1.22, right?
We do, yes. And that's a whole other effort because the release tools integration was only done for one of the repos. But first they need to be updated to accommodate the new alpha feature, and that they needed to merge before that could happen. So now that it's in, we can refactor those to rely on the new data source ref field instead of data source and get them updated. I mean, it should be a very, very small change, but you just have to retest everything. And yes, we want to do alpha releases out of those repos.
Okay, thanks.
All right, good progress, Ben. Thank you. Next up is Cozy. Last status here was Sid's putting together a cap, and there were continuing discussions on the design. Any new updates here from anyone closely involved with the Cozy project?
I think Sid is trying to get team to do an API review, but I don't know. I haven't heard from him on the status.
Got it.
We have a meeting after this, so we will hear from him.
Okay. I'll copy over the last status. It seems like that's still applicable. Next up, we have change block tracking for the data protection work group. We've had no updates for a while. Anything new here?
Yeah, so I think Fang is trying to schedule a meeting to continue the design discussion. So I think we're going to discuss the design in our next data protection working group meeting, which is Wednesday in 2 weeks. Yeah, so if anyone is interested, please join meeting. And Saad, Michelle, and if you can join, that'll be great. I will send you the invite.
Sounds good. And I don't know, Matt, if you're on the line, this might be a good one for you as well. Okay, cool. Next up is new RWO access modes.
Yeah, so last update there was updating the KEP. And so since then, the KEP was updated to include scheduler changes to enforce the access mode. And API review was passed, code is merged, and now just docs PR is waiting on review.
Awesome, nice work. All right, next up, CSI Proxy for Windows, new API changes required. Mauricio?
So we have released the V1 for CSI Proxy yesterday, so that's out.
Awesome.
And the next step is updating documentation, or rather creating documentation.
All right, that's a pretty big milestone. Congratulations to the team. So this has been a work in progress for a long time. CSI Proxy enables CSI drivers for Windows. So if you have a CSI driver that you would like to be able to work with Windows, please work with the CSI Proxy team and try and consume the CSI Proxy and use it for working with your CSI driver. The assumption, of course, is that it's already deployed and available in the environment, and you just need to make sure you use the API. All right. Moving on, we have CSI Migration. Is Jawei or Matt or anyone else on the line here? Okay, I'm going to mark that as no update. CSI Migration deprecations, I assume, is in the same boat. Then we have vSphere Windows support, raw block support. Any updates from the vSphere side on CSI Migration?
So the raw block support will be in 2.3, which should be coming soon. Windows support is planned for end of year. And then there's another issue, which is the support for NFS v4. I think that's still not supported yet, so we're trying to figure out when that can be supported. That's not a driver, it's not a CSI driver issue. It's a vSphere issue, so there's a bug there that we're not sure when that will be fixed yet.
Got it. So it looks like raw block in 2.3, which is soon, Windows support end of year, and NFS TBD.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, thank you for the update, Shing. Okay. Next up, we have Azure Disk, and Azure File. Andy or Michelle, any updates on this? Okay, we'll mark that as no update.
I have a small update for Azure File, like the next one.
Okay.
We could not enable it by default in 122 because we just moved the FS group support as alpha feature, so we should be able to enable the migration by default in next release. And yeah, I mean, is there anything else?
Cool. All right, thanks for that update, Hemant. Next up is GCE beta and on by default. Matt doesn't look like he's on the line. Mauricio, do you have anything new here? Okay, we're going to mark that as no update. And CSI Migration, AWS. Last status we got here was PR was out for Windows support, and there was bug fixes going on for topology. Any progress since then? Any updates from anyone? Okay, we'll keep moving along. Next items are CEF-FS and CEF-RBD, CSI Migration. Humble, any updates here?
Yeah, so I had dropped an email to Kubernetes server and storage SIG mailing list, but unfortunately there is no response on the thread. So we don't have a consensus on this yet. However, parallel discussions are also going on, and hopefully we'll be able to take final call and target for maybe next release.
Okay. All right, thank you for following up, Humble. Next item is control volume mode conversion between source and target PVC. The last status here is that a design was being drafted. Any updates since then?
Yeah, so we actually had a review meeting in yesterday's data protection working group about this. So Rona has this draft design, and we reviewed that. And yeah, so I think it looks good so far. So he's going to address the comments. And then once that's in a good shape, we will contact security group just to see if they have any concerns before we turn this into a real cap.
Awesome. All right, thank you, Shing. Next up is secret protection finalizers to prevent deletion. Last status update here was concerns on the cap are still outstanding. Is that still the case here?
I thought Masaki was online today. No?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, concerns are not resolved yet, but yeah, I did some update in implementation of the POC code.
Got it. Okay, sounds like this is something we're going to move to 123.
Yeah, I'm intending to.
Okay. All right, thank you for the update, Misaki. Next up is a set of items that are co-owned between SIG storage and other SIGs. First up is with SIG auth. User ID ownership in config maps and secrets preserve default file mode bit set in atomic writer volumes. We have not been able to get a status update in the last few weeks. Any updates here since then? Okay, we'll get an update on that from Jawei hopefully next time. Next up is with SIG node ungraceful node shutdown. The last status here was there was concern from James on both KEP and CSI spec, which were outstanding, synced up with Yasin, who is looking into bare metal issues, looking at graceful node shutdown. Any updates on that since?
So Yasin says he's going to do give an update on those comments, but I have not seen anything from him yet, so I will need to ping him. So I have been looking at the graceful node shutdown and see if we can just leverage that code to do something if we are trying to narrow down the scope, saying if we only want to handle the real shutdown case. So still looking into that.
Got it. All right, thank you, Shing, for the update. Next few items here, we have enable user namespaces in kubelet so UIDs get shifted, rootless mode. This is with SIG node. Hemant, do you have any updates here?
No, I don't have any update. There was a PR. I don't know if the design was exception was granted, but I don't know what happened to the PR. I have not kept.
Okay, no worries. I think this is probably going to get moved to 123. Next item is SIG apps. Address issues PVC created by stateful set will not be auto-removed. Matt was helping drive this. He was working on it as of 4 weeks ago. Any updates here? Anyone see a PR come through? Anything?
I think this one didn't make it because I think the API side changes got merged, but then the controller side did not. It needs some approval from someone from the SIG auth side. Looks like didn't get anyone to review that, so missed the deadline. So I'm not sure what to do with the API side changes, because that part is actually in.
Yeah, it should probably be reverted and moved. Okay. Take a note to follow up offline with Matt. Next item is volume expansion for stateful sets.
Shalini is trying to catch up on the cap, so she picked this up. So just trying to submit a new cap based on the original one. I think I synced up with her a few days ago. Looks like she's still working on it.
Thank you, Shing, for that update. Next up is execution hook for application snapshot.
Same status. We're still waiting for SIG node.
Yeah, it's probably going to slip into 123, but hopefully they can prioritize. They've got a very long list of designs to help review, and they're very conservative. So
yeah.
Next up is SIG architecture, splitting up the mount utility into its own repo. Last status update here was added a deprecation notice for the old repo, and I don't know if there was any leftover work here. We'll get an update next time we have Serini. Next item is SIG scheduling, prioritization on volume capacity. Last status update we got was a month ago. Some remaining PRs are being updated. Any updates since then? Okay, we'll mark that as no update. And finally, we have CSI service account token. Any updates on this?
I think that one is done. I'm probably good to double check with Michelle.
Okay.
Is it alpha or beta?
This is GA.
GA?
Yeah.
Oh, you mean
I
it's
believe
GA for 122?
Yeah,
I think it was beta in the prior release.
Yeah, yeah. It's GA already. I think everything that is needed is, I believe is in, but it's good to double check with Michelle.
That was fast. Yeah, 3 releases, alpha, beta, GA.
Yeah.
All right, thank you all for the updates. Let's switch back to the agenda doc. So first up, we have Mustafa with the volume snapshot transfer. Looks like you've captured the meeting notes here from the discussion on Monday. Anything you want to add here?
So just like you will find first attempt and second attempt and third attempt, because there were 3 different people working in this like kit. The first one was proposing, just as you see, using annotations, the PVC. The second one was proposing using CRDs for PVCs only. The third one was using the same approach with CRDs, adding volume snapshots. And correct me, Christian, if I'm wrong. I think he was here. Yeah. Yeah, and everyone agreed in the call about using the CRD approach. Still, we need to clarify many things. For example, like, shall we use controller of entry or having external controller? So this was a proposal by Michael Henriksen in the second attempt. He said that we can use the same approach, CRDs, using external controller. That would be much more flexible to add things in the future. But yeah, it's still open for discussion.
Got it. Thank you for that succinct summary. Anybody have any comments on this?
This is Masaki speaking. I think I am only the one who prefers the API changing approach. And the reason for it is that CRD approach may make complicating the yeah.
So actually, Masaki's implementation was added in my document. If you go back to my document, I will show you where he has a POC already. So if you go for the third attempt, and then yeah, number 2, you will find the POC link here, and below is the things that he added to the PVC specs. So he added these fields to the PVC specs, and based on that, the implementation used these added fields to make it work. And he also tested it, but for the ideal case.
Got it.
And yeah. And I add the comment on the cap that what complexity will be introduced by using CRD approach. So please check it and see it can be solved. And it is okay for me. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
I added my notes at the bottom of that doc talking about the issues related to PVC secrets and what happens to them when you transfer a PVC and all the problems that come from not dealing with them.
So Ben, the problem you added actually exists in both approaches, right? Whether it is
I mean, this is a more fun, regardless of the user interface for this, any attempt to move a PVC across namespaces can result in having the underlying PV point to secrets in a different namespace than the original PVC, because the way the provisioner works is it takes the namespace of the PVC and uses that for all the secrets when it creates the PV. And so that makes it very hard to change the namespace after the fact, because all your secrets are now in the wrong namespace. But that's only for cases where you're using the secrets feature of the external provisioner, which, like, I'm sure 90% of CSI plugins don't use, but for the 10% that do, you got a big problem.
Yeah, maybe we can check with Michael. He said he implemented the CRD approach, and we'll see if he run into any problems with that.
It's pretty, I'm sure it's pretty easy to implement something that just ignores the secrets, because if you happen to be testing on a CSI driver that doesn't rely on secrets, you would never see this issue.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, this is Masaki. Actually, my POC approach doesn't implement the secret handling, but I have an idea for resolving it. So I'll try it.
Okay. How do we want to collaborate moving forward? Do you want to do another design meeting to talk through these ideas, or Mustafa, what's your plan?
Yeah, I actually need to sync with Michael Harrison, or yeah, we can also make another meeting for this to discuss all these things that were added today. Yeah, so I think I will end up opening another kip with changes, and so I would like to have input from everyone if possible.
Sounds good. So maybe if you could send out. Sorry, go ahead.
Where was the meeting announced? Because I didn't even know about the meeting.
Well, this is in I sent that invite to the mailing list, but sometimes it just automatically bounces back.
Okay. Yeah, it's probably a problem on my end. I just want to make sure I'm getting the right invites so I can.
Okay, next time if I schedule something, I'll just add your email.
No, you don't need to do that. Just,
I don't know.
I just need to sort it out on my end.
But yeah, I think the mailing list sometimes does not work well for me. I normally I will see a lot of people just automatically reject.
Yeah, I think the other thing is we can just add it to the SIG calendar. As long as it's on the SIG calendar, hopefully people will be able to see it. But go ahead and send out a Doodle poll, Mustafa, and see if you can get at least the core people, Masaki, Ben, and anybody else who's interested. Try and find a time that'll work for them, and we can get this conversation going. And thank you for your work on this. Next up, we have from Deep, runtime assisted mounts to be added to the design discussion. Oh, yeah. So you want to talk about this, Deep?
Sure. If you can just open up the doc. So the context for this is we are trying out some scenarios based on micro VMs, specifically Kata. And one of the things we came up with there is like in the Kata community, there's this kind kind of preference to be able to mount the volumes within the micro VM context, right? So what happens with CSI, of course, is that the volume gets mounted in the host, and then something like VirtIOFS is used to kind of project everything from the host up to the micro VM-based containers. We tried out a couple of approaches where the CSI plugin and the runtime kind of communicate between themselves using a private interface, and had a quick review of that in the Kata community. And Patrick Uli kind of took a look. Maybe this diagram will help. And like he commented that, it'd be done the right way, which is, through some level of kubelet involvement, making the signals pretty definitive between the various components involved, that that a plugin, a CSI plugin, may not want to, or may want to yield the mounting process to the CRI runtime, which might eventually get the OCI runtime. There are also some SIG storage and CSI bugs here and there where this did come up a couple of times. So this is sort of like, we thought like we can get a kept going around it, and started off with this sort of design with some thoughts around like potential enhancements to some of the CSI messages, and definitely, enhancing the CRI mount message to include some of the details around what needs to be mounted, so that a CSI plugin can yield the node publish and essentially say, hey, runtime, when you get the mount, make sure you do this mount with these details.
Deep, did you ever consider an approach that looked more like what we did on Windows with the CSI Proxy? Because there's a whole bunch of stuff that's really gross to do on Linux. If we had something like CSI Proxy on Linux too, could be made way less nasty. And it occurs to me that what you're trying to do might conceivably be easier if there was a CSI Proxy on Linux.
Yeah, I do call out like about 4 different alternatives besides the main design. So we can definitely consider other alternatives too, and it'd be great to have more comments on the doc. But yeah, pretty much all the operations, all the main like CSI node operations are things that I'm specifying that it be delegated to the plugin and the runtime to basically coordinate amongst themselves. It's mainly the mount step around node publish, where due to some security issues that Patrick was identified, we figured it might be better to have kubelet and CRI kind of control that thing and provide like extremely specific directions that, hey, runtime, given this kind of mount spec from OCI, make sure you either mount this file system on a specific block device, or mount like an NFS share on the within the VM environment. So in parallel to the CSI proxy mechanism, yes, like pretty much all the CSI node operations are happening, will be done by the CSI plugin in coordination with the runtime using some kind of a private interface. So for Kata, for example, I have a link in the design to like a CLI that was kind of prototyped to enable some of this. And that kind of is sort of parallel to the proxy approach, right? Where the CSI plugin is delegating a lot of the operations to a proxy. But yeah, the core of this design is around the mount, the initial node publish, and sending that signal to the runtime in a definitive and authoritative way that please do this mount.
Well, my thought process is that if we did have enough of a CSI proxy that would allow node plugins to run without root permissions on Linux, which is what you want, really, then implementing what you're talking about could be as simple as swapping out the CSI proxy for a different version of the CSI proxy when you're in the situation that you're in with these little micro VMs. And the CSI proxy in that implementation could just do something totally different because it would know exactly what was being asked of it. I realized that like for some unusual styles of file systems that might become really, it might just push all the complexity into the proxy. But there'd be a lot of benefits too.
I think one limitation that CRI has is right now there's no way to do any mounts at runtime. Like all the mounts should be specified before you start, when you start the container. So that.
Yeah, I mean, well, the CRI half of it, I'm not too familiar with, and I'm sure that that's a whole complicated situation. But it just seems to me that, you know, like it's one thing to do like an iSCSI mount and get a block device, and then pass that device through to some VM that can then mount it internally. But like an NFS, you just can't do that. You have to do something much more complicated, and it's going to be different for every style of CSI plugin. And unless you have something centralized that understands all that, it's kind of hopeless to do something other than just let the CSI plugin do the mounts. I think the reason we have the architecture we have today is because there's way too many ways to mount a file system, and we just delegate all that down to the CSI plugin and let people figure it out.
I am a little afraid of CSI Proxy getting too large, because it is effectively a whole nother API that we have to maintain.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, given that it's unavoidable on Windows.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping at least with Windows it'll go away once we get privileged containers.
Oh.
So I'm hoping that it's not permanent.
But isn't privileged containers a step in the wrong direction because it's a security threat?
I mean, that's the way it works on Linux, right? Where you're currently running privileged containers that let you do mounts on the host machine.
Right. But I mean, then it means that any attack performed on a node plugin lets you take over the node, which is a giant security hole that, you know, you have 100 different vendors implementing plugins that all have different security holes, and it's a Swiss cheese kind of an approach. If you could run the node plugin without root privileges, you'd be in a much better situation.
All right, we have a trade-off between a API that we have to maintain southbound and kind of play catch-up potentially versus, yeah, it's a security vulnerability.
Right, like one of the other goals as part of this design is also to enable like regular mounts to happen and only kind of do this deferral to the runtime if a pod with a specified runtime class comes in and says, you know, I want this deferral behavior to be there. So we want to be able to be like fairly flexible in terms of allowing this to be enabled on a pod PV pairing basis, rather than, you know, have it kind of blanket that every pod on a certain node be using this deferral, which I think is more the model with CSI Proxy, where in Windows we pretty much require that the CSI plugin be using the proxy, because there's no other way out.
So Deep, this does have a goal of like letting users attach or mount volumes at like runtime, like while the pod is running, right? Or am I reading this wrong?
I wouldn't say like, you mean let the sandbox start and then be able to mount?
Yeah.
I didn't consider that use case. Like, does Kubernetes support that model?
No, it does not. But I'm just asking. One of the use cases, I heard from other users who use Kata that they wanted to do that. They wanted to mount volumes once the VM is running, because the VMs have different life cycle than a pod generally.
Correct. That's a great point. So I think this is kind of like, I guess, our first baby step into what we can achieve through potentially expanding a little bit of the CRI. And you know, the next step here is obviously also going to SIG node and getting this queued up. And one of the alternatives could be to see if, you know, we can have other mount messages be passed through after the sandbox has started that enables what you described. And that's not part of the initial goal, at least.
One more issue that we are going to have is like, I know that Kata containers don't support SLNX, for example. Like, so the whole, I think it supports SFS group, but when you are, yeah, so basically we'll have to figure out the permissions of the volume.
Agree. Like that is something a Kata agent will have to take care of. All the post mount steps that kubelet does. That is a great point.
Yeah, it's a really interesting proposal. How do you want to proceed with this, Deep?
I'm open to suggestions. Since this involves quite a bit of SIG, I also do want to get this queued up in their massive queue of things.
Got it.
And besides that, should I send out a doodle around further discussions around this?
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Awesome. I'll do that. Thanks.
All right, folks, if you're interested in this discussion or the previous one, keep an eye out on the mailing list for Kubernetes SIG storage for the doodles, and please respond to those if you're interested in attending the meetings. Last item here is failing tests need to be fixed. Shing, did you add this or?
No, I didn't.
Hi, I am part of the CI Signal team. As a team, we added these items to the agenda. The first one is one issue in master informing. We think is related to the SIG storage. So there were pull requests that hopefully fixes the metrics or getting the metrics, but the message is still there, or the error message is still there. Only we added to the agenda in order to look for someone to take a look on that issues.
Got it. And it looks like it was Patrick who was taking a look at these.
Yeah, Patrick and Antonio Ojea.
Got it. Does anybody on the call have bandwidth to help take a look at these? It looks like these are high priority issues. Or has Patrick not been engaged? Is this just more an FYI, Rodolfo, or do you need like additional help?
I think I need additional help because I think Patrick suggested to test this in a Windows environment.
I see.
And someone that has more experience with these metrics tests.
Got it. Got it. Is there anybody on the call who's interested in helping test with the Windows environment?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
This is Mauricio, I can do that.
Sounds good. Thank you, Mauricio. Rodolfo, do you want to reach out to Mauricio offline?
Sure. Thanks, Mauricio.
Sure, no problem. Thanks for reporting it.
All right. Was there anything else that you needed, Rodolfo?
No, I think that is okay. Thanks for.
Sounds good. Thank you for attending and for surfacing this.
Thanks.
All right. I think that's all on the agenda today, and we've got 1 minute left, so we're good on time. Thank you, everyone, for attending, and we'll reconvene in 2 weeks. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.